to kick us off, I'm going to go to Nadeem. Nadeem from Opower. Can you actually take us back to the dollar and cents value? You guys have done a lot of studies in this. Can you tell us what is an engaged customer worth?
Absolutely. So my company, Opower, we're a software company that works with electric and gas companies to help them engage the customer base for that specific purpose, increasing profit. So what we've discovered is that by engaging the customer, we generally can increase profit by up to 25 to 40% in terms of annual gross margin per customer per year. That comes from really one of four categories. One is helping sell more things to customers, so non-commodity services. The second is by driving down OpEx. Third is increasing loyalty, so customer tenure. And the fourth, which isn't applicable to every utility, but is to some, is actually optimizing capital expenditure by helping shape the load curve, by engaging the customer and getting them to reduce their consumption at times when it's profitable for the utility.
So by that end-to-end management, you're also affecting what's happening at the John Paul, I'd like to bring you in. We were talking a little bit off air, and you made a very valid point. You said, what are we trying to get the customer to engage in? So can you give us your view about what you think that should look like?
Yes, so I'm Jean-Paul Krivine. I work for EDF. I'm involved in smart homes, smart buildings, smart cities. Of course, as has been said, engaged customer it's better in terms of loyalty, at least, because the more we have interaction with our customers, the more loyal they are, and that's very important. So there is a first step in this interaction with customers is first, at least on our basic business, to provide more than we did in the past. Our basic business is to sell energy. So now we have to engage customer to better understand what is happening. And the good thing is that with the smart metering, with the smart world coming, now we have more to say to our customer and more just a bill at the end of the month, but we can explain what happened and we can customize the explanation. So the basic level would be about bill explanation, would be about comparison to others, and that is a point of view from the utility of what is engaged customer. But to be honest, even the dream of our marketing people would be that our customers think always about energy, spend all the day thinking energy. It's not the case. When they think energy, it's normally not very positive because they just have a pay bill, and then engaged customer, if we stay only in this silo, would be how can you reduce the bill? And as soon we cannot make a guarantee that the bill will be reduced, it's difficult to interact with that. So to close with this first part, of course, we have to increase the level of interaction with the customer on that, but we have to adopt the point of view of our customers when they think about to be engaged. It's not only on energy. They live in a house, they want a house easy to use, to live, a comfortable house, and then we have to understand how we can connect the energy with the end use of the customer, comfort, security, everything in that, and then to have customer engaged, a conversation with the customers that is not only focused on energy, that of course under energy, but open to all the other dimensions.
So you're all talking about breaking down silos. We've got to go beyond just energy as a conversation. So John, can I go to you for a second here? At ESB, you've started on that customer engagement journey, and can I just ask you to articulate, why? Where are the pressure points? Where are the motivators?
Thank you, John McKiernan from ESB, Head of External Collaboration. Yes, I think we are watching our revenue fall. The Irish market is down 8% over the last 5 years, and we've decoupled from economic growth. The economy is now recovering, the leading economy in the OECD, but the growth in electricity consumption is not growing. So we need to broaden our offering to the customers, and we can't broaden our offering to the customers unless we know what the customer actually wants. So historically, we've had a monologue with our customer. They take our electricity and they pay a bill, So it hasn't really been terribly exciting. And the stats are the engagement has been between 6 and 9 minutes per year. And as we alluded to earlier on, not always a positive engagement. Bill shock after Christmas when you get your largest Visa bill of the year, almost your largest electricity bill for that time as well. Not a good experience. And now we have a 14% switching rate in Ireland. So, there's another engagement when I'm leaving you or moving you. So, not necessarily all of the engagement is positive. So we're trying to change that. So what we've done is trying to figure out what positive interaction we can have with the customer and make it a dialogue, a two-way exchange of information, so we can figure out more what the customer wants. So at the moment, at the domestic end, we're delivering energy efficiency to the customer via heating controls, smart heating controls, your smartphone, which actually ups the customer engagement time, sort of a once per day during heating season. So a 40-fold increase in engagement, and actually the experience is very positive now because they have now something they like, a nice app. They have a hot shower instead of a cold shower when they get home, etc., etc. So you're giving them something they really want as opposed to a bill. So we're trying to engender a more positive experience, and then at the larger customer end, we've partnered with Kingspan. They're a multinational company that put in 90% of the rooftops in Ireland, commercial rooftops. We're doing rooftop solar, a funded solution, so they know where the rooftops are, they put them there. We know we want to put in the solar on top, so we can go to a customer. They don't really want to become solar experts. They don't want to figure out year one, is it going to be sunny? What time of year should I? We take all that headache away. If it doesn't produce any electricity, they don't pay any money. So we've now figured out this is a value proposition that's not just a commodity, it's a service. And I think all of the action historically in our industry as a whole, the last sort of 100 years, has been on big generation and grids. Now all of the action, to quote the guys from Rocky Mountain Institute, is it's all on the customer side. And historically we haven't been good, so that's what I'm saying, we're just starting this journey. Energy is the initial one, but I think it will be bundled services. It will be, we're electricity and gas now, it will be more than that going forward, wrapped up, bundled to our customers.
So becoming a services industry. And just to finish this sort of introductory narrative of Alain, if I can bring you in, can you paint a picture of what some of these engaged customer services look like? What are the manifestations that we're seeing? And then we'll have a discussion amongst us about whether we disagree or agree with everything that's been said.
Yes, Adam, I'm Alain Bollack from EY. I'm the global leader for smart metering, smart grid. I think I agree with a lot of things that have been said, but I think let's be very realistic. We are completely at the beginning of the journey. It's like from zero to hero. It's not going to happen in a few years' time. There's long journey. I mean, all the areas we talked about are absolutely true. Energy control, entertainment, security, comfort, all this stuff, absolutely true. The only one I would add to that, and I think you're starting to allude to that, is around the prosumer. So is people starting to generate their own electricity, being, you can even imagine being completely off the grid, so being completely independent from the grid, from the distribution. That doesn't mean it's not a distribution company who's going to manage that, but it could be technically off the grid. So I think there is a realization by the customer that because we're giving them the information, they're going to understand what they spend, and it's substantial. It's, for a lot of people, it's becoming substantial, and the price of electricity or energy overall continue increasing and will continue to increase with all the investment we need to put in the sector. People will start to do, and they will be conscious of it. Customers are conscious. There will be stuff. They will be doing stuff up to leaving the grid.
And so, if I can come back to you about breaking down those silos and things like that, I mean, it sounds like there's an agreement that needs to be done, because you aren't going to get to a bundled services company without having other parts of the conversation and so on. How are you going about breaking down those silos? I mean, how are you starting the journey to not just talk to people about electrons?
Yes. First, we have to understand why now we push this idea of breaking down the silo. It's not just because we discovered that now and not 10 years ago. It's just because the digital revolution is coming. It means that digital is breaking the silo. Why and how digital is breaking the silo? By providing a common infrastructure that can be shared by all the silo. It has a lot of things in terms of application. The first one, it reduces, of course, the cost of developing something because you share what has been done for other things. But also, it changes the way you can deliver new services that go out the box of one silo. I will provide you an example. For instance, if you want to merge comfort and energy saving, and pushing the idea to the customer that more comfort can also imply more savings, but we start with the comfort. Consider the smart thermostat that is developed. The first argument that has been pushed for smart thermostat, if you consider Nest and the other, Netatmo, is first convenience and comfort. You can control your heating from outside, you can do what you want, and that is the first reason of adoption, it's comfort. And then you can say, but doing that, you will make saving, at least because you can switch off, or not you can, it will be switched off when you are away, and when you will be back, it will be warm enough, because by some way the system will know that we will be back. So it's a way to break the silo and to put together, for instance, comfort and energy. And you can develop a lot of examples. And I would finish. What is very important from the customer point of view is to keep that easy and to remove complexity and technology. And part of the technology is energy. They don't understand energy. So to be engaged for them is to make energy transparent. So they expect, for instance, if they have a solar panel and what you mentioned, optimization with the electric vehicle solar panel, etc., that will be transparent. They cannot think about what is the best time to sell my energy, how I have to switch. Automatism and transparency, that is automatism has been adapted to what I want in my home. That is very important to break the silo.
So you're getting those automations and you're making those automations, but the customer is in control about the envelope in which it's behaving. So
I would put that in other words. What makes sense for a customer is to express the preference they have. For instance, I give you an example. I have an electric vehicle, for instance, at home. I come back in the evening, I want to charge it. The only thing I want to make sure is tomorrow morning I have to wake up at 6 o'clock. I expect that the charge will be done, I have enough energy, and possibly if there's an emergency during the night, I have enough energy to go to the hospital. Afterward, it's not my problem to know when you optimize and you charge that, and I expect that something will optimize that according to what I express in terms of preferences.
So it's preference-led. You're nodding, Nadeem. Can I bring you in?
I would just build on what you just said. We talk a lot about the engaged consumer, and I think a lot of utilities think about mindshare, or the number of minutes per year that the customer is thinking about energy, utility, the services they're providing. 6 to 9 minutes is a rough estimate. The question is it a realistic goal to get the consumer to think about it more than that? Or are we just using those 9 minutes really poorly today through a bad understandable bill and calls to the call center that don't actually resolve people's problems? Like, I would say that we actually have an opportunity to use those 9 minutes much more wisely. If we are empowering the consumer to have choice, to turn off their lights remotely or turn off their thermostat, and we are also giving them peace of mind, that's also engagement. But it doesn't necessarily require a lot of time. So I would say that a lot of these devices that are taking off inside the home, like the thermostat, we're not actually getting a lot more mind share of time. We're just giving people peace of mind.
That contradicts somewhat. You're trying to get more time, aren't you?
No, I think it's quality, not quantity. I would agree.
Yeah.
I see Christian Feiss, the CEO of BG over there. He's a disruptor. His entire proposition is on engaging the customer with a 50% discount day one. Very disruptive. That's customer engagement. Eyes light up, and it's a wrap service. So these are the kind of things that are going to come to our industry. But a key point I'd like to make is, we're probably about 10 years behind the telecom sector. They've gone through this correction already. The dot-com bang. We're going through a similar correction now in the power utility sector. But we can learn from that curve that they've been through. For instance, their core commodity was voice. Skype took that away from them. It's very hard to sell transatlantic voice minutes at any rate now. Then they were selling SMS text. Then WhatsApp took that away. So all of these tech companies are now the billion-dollar companies. Follow the money.
Now they're selling data.
They're selling the data. They're monetizing the data. So actually, what can we learn from that? Give the customer what they want. So actually, in Ireland, we are not a technology. We're a utility. But we need to partner with technology companies and people who have access to other parts of the spectrum, value spectrum to the customer. So for example, we're partnering with Vodafone now in Ireland, of 500 million rollout of 1 gigabyte fiber to our customers. So that's what they want. Guess what? That's what they want in telecoms. They're willing to pay for it. We've got an infrastructure, we can leverage that, so we can bring the customer something he wants. So we're going to bring him 1 gigabyte fiber to 50 rural towns across Ireland. That's something they want. So we're hoping that we can kind of win the hearts and minds. They will remember who brought it to them. So we do want that loyalty, and also we want to sell them other value-added services. We're moving from, you know, we were in an industry where everybody used to say we have to be careful every day because if you did nothing, it was fine. Now it's the first time the do nothing is the highest risk option. You have to try new products. We have to try and bring them new products and services. They won't like them all, but hopefully they will like a lot of them if we get that interaction right. And they will. Initially, it's around energy. It's around, as you say, the EV charge management. But you can wrap them into new business models. So you could have free 2 years free fuel for your EV, or prepaid products like that. So you're solving a problem for the customer. So I think the technology is there, but we have to bundle it, wrap it into attractive customer propositions, which historically utilities haven't been good at. But we have to get up that learning. I agree with you. We're on the start of that journey.
But one dimension we haven't spoken about, I think, which is crucial, is probably under everything we just said, is customer segment. Not all the customers are equal here.
Yes.
The young don't have the same needs than a family with 2 children and so on, slightly richer or whatever. So we need to, and that's what we're learning also in the utility, to start to segment the customer base and saying, young people may want pay-as-you-go type offering, which is going very well in Ireland and is growing now in the UK. Yesterday we were talking about 50% potentially of the UK market going into pay-as-you-go. I don't know if it's 50, whatever the number. But that's part of, I think, the sinking of the utility. We're starting to better understand the customer and what they need by testing stuff, by engaging with them, where before it was like a big group of non-engaged taxpayers.
Yeah, well, it's just a big homogenous bundle, right?
Yeah.
As long as you pay, it doesn't matter, don't care who you are. You guys have done some work on that, though. I mean, about the different customer segments and how they behave and how you interact with them. I mean, how easy is it theoretically for a utility to start understanding all those customer segments?
So first, the raw material for segmentation is data, always. And so for us, what we found is the most important first step is simply being able to gather more data about the customer. And that often involves utilities actually rethinking even the onboarding experience, right? Every minute that you spend in the call center, you have to justify that minute of the call center time. And so in the past, it's been the utility's preference to make that process very quick, gather as little data as possible, get the customer signed up. We're seeing a lot of focus now on the part of utilities about gathering a lot of data up front and then monitoring people's behavior. For instance, online, we have a ton of tools available to us that we didn't have 5 years ago about observing people's behavior and using that also to create not just a demographic segmentation, but also overlaying that with a behavioral segmentation. Those two tools allow us to really tailor the customer experience, but also the different offers to the customer quite quickly.
But isn't there a danger with all of this segmentation where we are potentially in danger of alienating certain segments as well? Because there is still a digital divide. Single home families and in different areas, they aren't all digitally connected or couldn't be. Isn't this sometimes this obsession with getting a digitally connected customer? We could alienate segments in this approach.
Absolutely. That's why multi-channel is so important. In the marketing industry, we talk a lot about omni-channel marketing these days. And that is very important. The reason I mentioned call center is the place where somebody's signing up for utility service is because a lot of people, that is how they sign up today. Right? They don't like using the computer, maybe they don't have an iPad. That's how they're engaging with the utility. So we have to be able to take advantage of those opportunities regardless of what channel the customer is choosing to interact with the energy company.
So can we bring this back around to, how do we solve this problem? How do we put these bundles together? Because I get a sense that there's a consensus that we need to start bundling, offering multiple services, and maybe using this privilege that we have 8 minutes guaranteed a year, of attention to do that. I mean, can I bring you in? I mean, how would we, how are you architecting all of this? I mean, how are we putting all these different silos together? Do you need sort of innovation platforms, or how do we go about it?
Complex question. Just to remind that we are at the very, very beginning of the journey. It's important to see that we are still in the old world, I would say, but we think about the future. Also, I want to remind, as a utility, the first thing before discussing that is to be at the best level in our core business. And I mean the best level is now has changed in terms, it's not just to deliver a bill, it's to deliver a lot of service that help customer to understand that. It's important to remind that, because if we move too quickly to the idea we have to open and to bring the silo and we are not the best in class in our silo, we won't be competitive to some other people coming. After saying that, I want to react to the question of segmentation. I would probably put that in the other way around. I'm not saying, because it's probably part of the old world, to say I collect data, as I did in the past, except now I have more data, and I will make a bigger segmentation, because in the past I have less data, I have less segment, now I have more data, more segmentation. It doesn't work this way. I think digitalization changed completely the thing. And what would be the target is not to move from, 100 segment to 1,000. It's to start with the idea now with digitalization, we have 35 million customers, we have 35 million segments. But with digitalization, we are able to trade them in a customized way with a massive treatment. And that is very important. We have started a partnership in Belgium with, not only in Belgium, in the UK, also in France, but we are most advanced in Belgium with Netatmo, thermostat provider. And then we can deliver to our customer a customized interaction that is individual, because we are speaking now what happened in their home. It's what I mean by individual segment. And the way we move to that is not to start with the data and to say we have a segment, it's just to start with the people who buy a thermostat. And that is the other way around. We have to adopt the customer as they are with what they buy. We have to be part of the process of what they choose to buy, not thermostat, but saying on top of that, we build something that is unique using where you come from. And the data will come in addition to that. But the driver is not first the data and then the segmentation. It starts from the customer.
Bring you in?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't disagree with that, obviously. Yes, but it's a journey again on the segmentation too. The point I wanted to make is more. You got people like in EDF or in ESB who are, and pardon me with the word, evangelistic indeed on the subject. And then we need evangelists in companies to change the entire mentality. And there's plenty of innovation. You hear all this stuff. I mean, you just have to be here. See all the innovation. All that is happening. But I think it's how you penetrate within the organization, within these large dinosaur organization like the companies represented here, or others, and the utility in general, where you need to penetrate and say, we need to think differently about the customer, we need to engage differently with them, we need to propose different stuff with them. And it's not just a vanilla at the top and a few people which are obviously, absolutely convinced with it. It's how you penetrate the entire organization. That's where, obviously it's, on one hand we talk about the customer, but within the organization need to change a lot too.
So how are you doing that then?
Oh, sorry, I was a dinosaur. I was just expiring.
It was a compliment.
I thank you. No, I think EDF bigger than us. So
a bigger dinosaur.
I think it's a good point. Our business model is changing. We know we spent 70, 80 years finessing the solution to the current utility 1.0 problem. Therefore, by definition, we've got the wrong solution for 2.0, whatever that is. We know it's the wrong solution. So we have our generation experts, our transmission distribution experts, and our supply people who are retailing. Now we have another unit in our company. So for the first time in the history of our company, we actually have an innovation unit with 1,000 staff. And that unit is under their, for the first time also in the history of the company, we have an innovation strategy separate from the corporate strategy. and the business is of innovation isn't incremental innovation, because we wouldn't exist today. We would have dinosaurs a long time ago if we weren't doing incremental. So it's all about the step change. What are we going to do that's significantly different? So we're trying to disrupt our own model before somebody else does. So, and we are focused on absolutely reaching out to the customer and saying, okay, what are the other services that the customer wants? What's the latent need that customer might have? And we have a team called Power Partner now developing new solutions, and I think I completely agree that we have to go to customer segmentation of one right down to domestics. At the moment we can't even do SMEs at that level, but technology is now there, and actually the skill set is there from the telecom sector. They're already monitoring through social media and everything with a customer lifetime value to $1 value on each customer, and figure out how, at any point in time, what's the value of that customer, of his influence. So we need to reach out to that model and say, okay, and people are conditioned now. People want individual tailored offerings now. That's what they expect. And it's starting off with clunky stuff like prepay. Prepay used to be for managing bad credit, but actually with 80% compound annual growth rate in prepay in Ireland. In Northern Ireland, it's already 40% of the market is prepay. And all our kids have been educated through mobile phones to prepay. All my kids are on prepay. That's how I control the bills. But they're used to it. So they are now growing up and saying, prepay, I don't have to worry about bills. And so their first electricity bill, probably prepay. It's now a lifestyle. And in fact, if you compare the lowest tariff with the highest prepay tariff in Ireland, it's a 29% premium for prepay. It's go figure. But the customer is willing to pay for it. So these are new segments that are emerging that we can address profitably.
So prepay is now becoming a thing of choice rather than a stigma.
Absolutely.
So when do we, one of the things that I find though, when we talk about the engaged customer in the utility space and so on, we always seem to be talking about the same things though, the sort of electric vehicles, the smart homes and things like that. Where are we disrupting? Do the four of you on the panel have anything that we can hold up and say, look, this is a disruptive, customer engagement-led electricity use case?
Well, I can give you some illustration, maybe not in Europe, but we see that in California, in Australia, now starting in Japan, is around microgrid. So you've got individual customers as communities getting off the grid, so they keep an end connection to the grid because
it's a safety line.
It's a safety line, but that's very disruptive. That's absolutely and it's happening. It's not the technology is cheaper, is available. And you've got a segment again of population who are interested by that because CO2 target, because they've got motivation on being green and so on, and also because of the price. You can see in Germany, in fact, Germany is growing quite fast in that segment. That's very disruptive for the energy company.
I mean, it's now cheaper to make your own electricity in Germany than buy from the grid. QED. And I would say also there's a push factor. If you look at Deutsche Telekom, own a telecoms company in Hungary, they to retain their telecoms customers, they bundle in electricity and gas, and they give it away at very low margins as a customer retention tool. So we could be completely disintermediated unless we start offering more value-added services.
The positive news, in my view, is I think the distribution company are the one, or the retailer in energy, are the one having the capability to manage the microgrid. So, where are the engineers? Where are the installers? They are in your organization.
So microgrids as a service, you offer it out before it disrupts you.
Absolutely, that's my belief.
I think it's actually, we have to take a leaf out of the real retailers, like the Marks and Spencer, the Tesco. They know more about the customers than we do, just from their address and what they bought the last couple of weeks shopping. They know how many people in the house. They know what they're going to buy for next Christmas already. They're making it now. So we have to get savvy about that, and also wrap it up in an attractive. So yes, we could sell. We want to more electrification, transport, decarbonize the transport sector. Fantastic. No emissions, no pollution in our cities. Fantastic. All good. But how do we? We haven't hit the tipping point yet, right? But if we can wrap it up in an attractive customer proposition, saying it's free mileage, no bills, because they are selling at the moment saying it's very low cost, and then the oil prices drop and said, okay, well now it's not as quite as good as it used to be. Just saying it's free, and you could do a prepay at the point of sale, and that now you said, okay, well, no fuel bills for 2-3 years, and it's a couple €100 on a sticker price. So I think we have to imagine new attractive products for our customers, and it's the technology I think is largely there, but we haven't really got slick about how we market the products. That's coming.
So is this really a marketing challenge?
No, not only. I want to react to something I have heard. First, the idea that utilities are dinosaurs, and
He doesn't like you calling him a dinosaur.
Okay.
and the second that the problem could be conservative inside the company. We have to convince people. I think it's more complex of that. In utilities, as in most companies, we have very clever people. So it's not just they are conservative and they want not to see what's happening. They ask good question. Okay, you tell me that some new things are arriving, microgrid, disruptive, etc. But when, how much, what will it change in the business? And you cannot say every day it will change tomorrow, because the day after nothing has changed. And so we have really to cope with that. And I think it's very important to understand that part of the conservative behavior we can see in the company can be connected to something true, that we have IT that is very slow, etc., etc. But part comes that we have a core business that still exists and that's still a value. Microgrid is something now we have to take into account, but we cannot say that microgrid will be general for every customer in the country. So it's very important to understand what is starting now, but what the size and what the business is, and that is the same about demand response. Of course, everyone is talking about demand response. Keep in mind that in France we have developed demand response within the tariff for 30 years, but demand response, okay, we have to be there and we want to be first in class, but demand response is a small part in the business, and I cannot predict when it will change, possibly in 5 years, possibly in 3, possibly in 10, and that's very, very important not to say we have only disruptive thing, utilities are too slow to understand, and just a matter of some clever people that understand outside the company. It's more complex than that, and we are ready to cope with the world as it is. And to finish, what is really disruptive? First, digitalization, that's sure. That is something that's clear and change the customer behavior. About energy, it's more complex. PV is developing, but we don't have in any household an EV, electric vehicle, a PV, an optimization system. We don't have that. I am not telling you that in 2 years we'll have that. Possibly, yes, smart thermostat will grow more rapidly. And that is a key question to put in the same way you push disruptive topics, to say what is the roadmap and when it will happen at small size, where you have to be present, a bigger size when it really impacts your business. It's very important.
I need to react to that, because apology if using a dinosaur was not the right term. I like to
you are not the first one.
I'm sure I'm not the last either. But my perception is, we talk about this subject for many, many years, but I think they're going faster than we were expecting probably even 12 months ago. You know, microgrid, we talk about it for a while. The technology is getting there, and it's getting more and more affordable, and we're seeing places around the world where people are testing and trying this stuff. So you're right, it's not going to be every French home going to be independent from the grid by 2030, 2050. Obviously not. But if you start going to 5, 10, 20%, and I don't know what is the timing, but it's happening now.
Yeah, but what is important, I'm not telling you, as I said, nothing is present. It's just to assess which level and what's the maturity, and also to assess where are the problems. And for instance, if I consider the smart home, but I do the same with the smart building, we have to understand what is the problem for customer adoption, because part of the technology is here, but not all the technology. And for instance, you cannot afford in the smart home to buy a smart thermostat to one provider, something else to another one. They will never work together. You will spend your time to change battery, to do the commissioning, to do everything. That is not possible, and customer will reject this kind of thing. So you have to solve solve a problem we call interoperability. But that is not a technical question, and it's about to be solved possibly, but that then you have to understand what are the problems. Not something is coming, but when it will come and what we have to solve in order to, as a utility, be in the good place in order to keep our customer and to keep the value. And it's all about that.
But aren't you, just as we're coming to the end of our time here, but I get a sense one of the things that you guys are trying to do is not to wait for the tipping point, but to actually influence the tipping point. You know, because there are two ways of approaching this. You could say, okay, I will wait until 80% of my constituency has electric vehicles, or I am going to make sure they have electric vehicles by giving them, 2 years free electricity and God knows what else.
You're spot on, and I think there is a valid question. Could you be a fast follower and jump in when everything's de-risked? We believe that that's a very high-risk strategy. We're learning from what's happened in Germany. If you just take a snapshot of Germany for a second, that the German market has evolved much faster into electricity market 2.0, but a lot of the utilities are on 1.0. They didn't make the transition. Some of them, like MVV, very profitable still because they moved quickly. They saw the opportunities. They avoided the pitfalls. But some of our biggest utilities in Europe that we all look up to didn't, completely underestimated that transition and have taken huge write-downs. So we can see that coming. There's sort of it's a 2-hour flight, but it's maybe a 3-year time difference.
Yeah.
So we're trying to take advantage of that mini crystal ball and say, okay, solar's coming. Even if we never put in a subsidy, solar's coming anyway. How do we help our customers have this? They want it. We could say, oh no, protect our grid, or we could say, look, it's going to come. Let us help you adopt it. Now, and your point, how do you manage it? And actually, companies are working on that already. One of them's over there. How do you manage that solar? Like, what's the service the customer wants? He doesn't want to go figure out how he's trading his solar or managing a battery. Somebody else take that headache away, please. I want the green credentials. I want the flat electricity pricing, and I want the low pricing. So if you can make that happen by pushing a button, I want to do business with you. So that's the direction of travel for us.
Yeah. Just as we finish off, Nadeem, are you seeing any of those accelerators with the work you do across various different sort of utilities? Are you seeing utilities proactively pushing that tipping point?
We haven't seen as much of it as we would like. I feel like the tipping point around things like microgrid, solar as a service, solar and storage, taking the house off the grid as a service, these are truly disruptive business models. Where we see the innovation right now, unfortunately, is less at the utility level, more at the tech startup level. You look at a company like SunPower in the United States that's offering solar as a very easy turnkey service.
Also
I would love to see utilities taking that mantle, using the data they have, and owning that market. We haven't seen as much of that as frankly I would like or I would expect. And I agree that utilities have incredibly smart people working at them. It's very clever.
It's true.
It's interesting that these very clever minds have been generally focused on one segment, which just needs electricity in a very reliable, low-cost way for a very long time. I think one of the challenges that utilities are going to have in the next few years is organizing themselves more around product management. Think about how Opower or Uber or Google or even Procter & Gamble organize themselves. It's really, the whole focal point is around product and go-to-market innovation. Bringing people in from the outside. I met a utility recently, the CEO came from Disney, which just wouldn't have happened 20 years or even 10 years ago. So what I would like to see, and I hope I'm going to see, is that utilities are going to be bringing in some of that expertise, but also the organizational structures from the outside, so that they can move more quickly, like the tech companies are, and frankly beat them at their own game, because utilities have the right to win.
And just coming back to you, final word. You've been watching this space a long time, and just finish us off with a thought about: are we moving fast enough?
I think the exam question for the utilities, if we want to elevate the debate, is the fundamental purpose of utilities is changing and need to be reinvented. So I think that's what we talked about, but I think we never said it. So I think and it's board level discussion, in some of your organization, talking about it, saying what we stand for, what are we offering, who we are, what should we become, what we stand for as an organization.
Well, that's why massive utilities are rebanding. GDF Suez is now NG. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, probably not. But anyway, we've come to the end of our time. Thank you for watching. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for taking part. I enjoyed the discussion, and we'll see you again online soon. Thanks.
Thank you.